So with this, process that we have in where we're thinking about our expectations for police and what ends up happening in it, let's think about like the decision to call police, or in some cases why someone may not. Right. So we can invert this a little bit. So I'm sure some of these can be easily applied either way, but for this we're just going to call things that are related to the decision to call police. So in the one instance, right, the first thing that we probably think about is that if we're calling police, we think they can do something, right? So, maybe if we call someone, right, we expect them to do something, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't call them in the first place, right? That is true for the people who are, I think I saw this on a Twitter video once. There was this woman who called the police and wanted to come in because her order was wrong, like at the McDonald's drive-thru or something like that. Instead of talking to the manager of the restaurant, versus the person who is being violently attacked, who thinks like, hey, perhaps the police can do something, right? So that is one aspect of it, right? The other part is that in some cases, depending on what the issue is, but they believe a crime has occurred. So that this is something that is a police matter to handle, right? Or it doesn't have to be a police matter, but that thinks this is something someone believes they are a victim or they're witnessing victimization. This could be, obviously serious enough to warrant calling police. There's, probably in this case then too, there's not a fear of retribution. What do I mean by that, right? So let's say I was interested in becoming a drug dealer. I'm based in West Virginia, and I have mountains of Percocet to deal to other people, right? But someone down the street who maybe wants to get on my turf decides to rob me, right? So in this case, then I'm a drug dealer selling or slinging prescription drugs, and in this particular instance, then I'm being robbed by someone else who wants to take my product and steal it for themselves. The fact that I'm a drug dealer, probably, I'm probably not going to call the police on that one. Like, hey, can you help me get my stolen Percocet or my illegal Percocet that I'm slinging for drugs? Probably not going to do that, right? So or if I call the police and I think that's something else, but maybe it's someone in the neighborhood, maybe it's someone in the family. If you are a victim of domestic violence, maybe you are fearful of retribution, but you want it to stop, right? There's maybe a mitigated fear of retribution in this case then, right? You could also, what other factors come in, right? If you have an existing record, so let's say that you were had a probation or parole record, and you had to have limited contact with police as a condition of your parole or probation. So in that case, then you maybe are less inclined to do it, although maybe you are as well, because it's a serious enough event. That is a factor that weighs, into it. So, so all these factors go in and they play a role in the decision to call the police. And I'm sure we can dream, up other reasons as well. But all these, factor in, right? So, but at the core of it, what we're really saying is that when we call the police, we expect them to do something. And that they will respond quickly, and that they will indulge our cries for help, right? That someone will come if we call for help. And that's really what the police, when you call an officer, that's what you're doing, right? You are asking for assistance with the situation you do not believe you can handle yourself, right? In most cases, most of the time, right? Now, maybe you just want the added strength behind a decision, who knows, right? That could be like an issue, right? Now, the thing is, right, with this added expectation, right, there is, something else that we should probably consider. For many places in America, and this is true, this is not true everywhere, but is true in some places, right? We have the uniformity of 911, right? Everyone, I remember as being a little kid, back before I had a phone, because I was, this is in the 90s. I remember having an index card, and they would have us memorize like our address, our phone number of other people in 911, right? I can still remember my old phone number from back then that I don't know if it works, but it's 817-416-8129, right? Haven't called that number in years. I don't know if it works. You could call it yourself. But, we have this uniformity in 911, right? And in most cases, we don't know, who else or what else to call. Right? Now, in some cases, right, there's going to be 311, for, if there is like rubbish in the roads, right, or something like that, or some trash or that needs to be cleaned up or something like that. It's a city service that could get called up, and that, is intended to shift, resources and calls away before you actually get into something. There's also, I believe it's 811, that if you're digging a trench and there could be a wire or cable underneath, right? Maybe it's 511. And, back in the olden days, I don't even think this exists anymore, but the 411, if you wanted local information about anything, right? So, we have all these, right? But for many places in the country, many places in this country, we're still reliant on 911 to make these calls. That is most known, and we are, believe that they can handle really anything, right? What do I mean by that? Well, who can think of other reasons to call? So I gave the example of the burger incident earlier. So I guess you could call them. Will they actually come is a different thing, right? And depending on the part of the country you're in, homeless people, for sure. If you believe that there is suspicious activity of some kind. Whatever that may be, you want someone to come sneak it out. We also call the police for domestic dispute resolvement. We call them for, if you see a drunk driver on the road, or you suspect that someone is or behaving erratically in some cases, right? We ask for them to call, in mentally, ill places, for mentally ill persons, or we suspect that someone's in crisis, right? And so what we end up believing as a result of this, right, is that there is this belief that because of access, and access in the terms of being able to contact someone who represents the government and is equipped with powers and the like, so that because of this access, this represents a holistic service for people. Because who else would we call, right? If I asked you to call some sort of other city services or some kind, you probably have to look that up. You don't immediately know that. If you believe that there is a CPS, Child Protective Services, kind of problem, you're going to have to look that up, and maybe you don't know that as a CPS issue, or if they would come and answer to such things, right? Depending on where you live, you may have different issues and problems related to that, right? But because we've sort of been socialized to believe that police come when called, and that they can help, we rely on them. So we'll hold on to this. We'll end this video here. But